Inside the Grand Harrington estate, Eleanor stood by the window, holding a whiskey glass, her sharp green eyes cold and distant. The mansion gleamed with gold accents, crystal chandeliers, and polished marble floors, but Eleanor's face showed no sign of satisfaction. She was troubled. The door creaked open, and her daughter, Haley, entered, dressed in a leather jacket and a defiant smirk. The contrast was stark. Eleanor's composure clashed with Haley's carefree, rebellious spirit. "You're late." Eleanor's voice was sharp, cold. Haley shrugged, tossing her purse carelessly onto a chair. "Am I?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Where were you?" "With him," Haley replied, nodding toward the artist. "No, her boyfriend." Eleanor's gaze turned icy. "That man is beneath you. You need someone who understands your life, your responsibilities. You're a Harrington." Haley snapped back. "Maybe that's exactly why I don't want to follow your rules." Eleanor set her glass down with a quiet, chilling finality. "You will marry John Montgomery. He works on our land. A man who can teach you discipline." Haley stared, speechless. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am," Eleanor said coldly. "Marry him, or leave with nothing." The ultimatum echoed in the silence. Haley's world was about to change. The conflict between Eleanor and Haley escalates as Eleanor, unable to tolerate her daughter's rebellion any longer, decides to impose a harsh punishment, forcing Haley to marry John Montgomery, a humble farmer who works on the Harrington estate. Eleanor presents this as a lesson in humility, making it clear that Haley must learn discipline and responsibility. The wedding is arranged swiftly, as if to assert Eleanor's control over her daughter's life and choices. Haley, caught completely off guard, is stunned and enraged. The idea of being forced into a marriage with someone like John, whom she's barely spoken to, feels like an insult. It's not just the fact that he's a farmer, but the fact that Eleanor has chosen him to teach her a lesson, stripping Haley of any autonomy. The rebellion inside her intensifies. How could her own mother do this? But Eleanor is unyielding, and the ultimatum she presents leaves Haley with no choice. "Marry John, or lose everything," Eleanor says coldly. All of Haley's wealth, her connections, the privileges she's always known, would vanish. Her freedom would be taken away. The walls close in on her as she realizes she has no way out. The wedding takes place in a small chapel on the estate, far removed from the glamorous ceremony Haley once envisioned. There are no grand guests, no fancy celebrations, just a handful of staff forced into attendance. Haley, dressed in a plain, simple gown chosen by her mother, stands at the altar, her heart heavy with disillusionment. Beside her, John Montgomery stands stoic and reserved, a stranger to her, and perhaps to himself in this moment. The wedding feels more like a prison sentence than a union. As the ceremony proceeds, the weight of Haley's fate settles upon her. After the wedding, the shift in Haley's life is immediate and jarring. She is forced to leave the Grand Harrington estate, the place she's known all her life, and move into John Montgomery's small, rustic farmhouse. The journey away from everything she's ever known is a cruel one, marked by her disillusionment and the bitterness of being trapped in a life she never chose. The farmhouse is a world apart from the Harrington estate. Where the mansion was polished and pristine, the farmhouse is rough around the edges. The peeling paint, the overgrown garden, and the simplicity of it all feel suffocating to Haley. She finds herself in a space that feels foreign and uncomfortable. The contrast between the opulent world she was born into and the harsh reality of farm life is overwhelming. Every corner reminds her of what she's lost, and the weight of her forced marriage presses down on her as she tries to settle into this new, humbling reality. At first, Haley sees John as just another part of her mother's cruel plan. He's simply the man she's been forced to marry, a pawn in her mother's attempt to teach her a lesson. But as she spends more time with him, she starts to see something deeper. John, too, is a victim of circumstance. He didn't ask for this marriage. He was also cornered, forced into this union out of his own need to protect what little he has. He begins to express his frustrations, his feelings of entrapment, and Haley starts to see that he's not the villain she assumed him to be. As they work side by side on the farm, something shifts. Haley starts to respect John, not just for his work ethic, but for his quiet, steadfast determination. John's life is simple, yes, but it's real. It's honest. While Haley initially resented every moment of farm life, she begins to appreciate the small, hard-won victories of John's world. He works with his hands, toiling in the dirt to keep everything running, and slowly, Haley finds herself drawn to the life he leads. He never asks for anything in return. He's patient, calm, and understanding, never showing bitterness for the position he's in. Through shared silence and hard work, a connection begins to grow between them. The subtle at first, an exchanged look, a quiet understanding but undeniable. What started as a punishment for both of them is turning into something more complicated. They begin to see one another as human beings, trapped by the same forces but slowly carving out a space for themselves, together. As the days go by, something within Haley starts to shift. The resentment that once filled her every thought begins to fade, replaced by a quiet acceptance. At first, the endless chores and the simplicity of farm life seemed like a cruel punishment, but gradually, Haley starts to see the beauty in it all. There's something calming about the rhythm of the farm, the early mornings, the hard work, the tangible results of a day's effort. For the first time in a long while, she feels at peace. Her views on life and relationships begin to change. The things that once defined her, wealth, status, and the approval of her mother, no longer seem as important. The farm, with all its simplicity, has offered her something her former life never could. Real, fulfilling purpose. Haley becomes more involved with the daily farm chores. She learns to fix fences, feed the animals, and help with the crops. It's tough work, no doubt, but with every task completed, she feels a sense of accomplishment that comes from her own efforts, not from the money or connections she once relied on. She begins to take pride in the hard-won rewards of a day's labor, the satisfaction of seeing the crops grow, of making a home from scratch. It's the first time she's experienced real achievement, something rooted in effort and not privilege. But just as Haley starts to find herself in this new life, her mother, Eleanor, arrives. She's determined to bring Haley back to the city, offering her the life of wealth and status she once had, tempting her with the comforts of the life she was born into. Eleanor's visit is an attempt to break Haley's resolve, to convince her that the farm is just a temporary mistake. She promises everything Haley once wanted: luxury, power, and the life of a Harrington. But Haley has changed. She sees the truth now. She sees the value in the life she's built with John. The quiet, humble existence that has given her more than she ever imagined. The struggle, the simplicity, the community, it's real. It's hers. And it's not something she's willing to give up for the empty promises of a life she no longer wants. Eleanor's attempts to control her fall flat. Haley stands her ground, no longer the confused, resentful daughter she once was. She asserts her independence, looking her mother in the eye and calmly saying that she's staying with John, staying on the farm. For the first time, she's making a decision based on what she wants, not on what her mother demands. As Eleanor leaves, her control slipping away, Haley feels a deep sense of relief. She's no longer bound by her mother's expectations or the pressure of living a life that was never truly hers. She's made her choice, and it's not a life of luxury. It's the simple, honest life she's begun to love. It's her own, and she's finally at peace with it. In the final moments, Haley stands at the edge of the farm, looking out over the sprawling fields as the sun sets, casting long shadows over the land. There's a stillness in the air, and for the first time in a long time, Haley feels truly at peace. She reflects on how far she's come. The journey from the lavish halls of the Harrington estate to the simple, fulfilling life she's built on the farm. The expectations her mother placed on her no longer weigh heavy on her shoulders. The materialism, the wealth, the endless pursuit of status. All of it seems distant, irrelevant. What matters now is the work she's done, the growth she's experienced, and the quiet life she's carved out for herself. Beside her, John works steadily, the two of them moving together as one. No words necessary, just the steady rhythm of labor. There's no rush to confess love or make grand declarations. Their connection has grown naturally, quietly, without pressure. John never tried to control her, never pushed her to fit a mold. He gave her space to figure things out on her own. In many ways, he has been the steady rock she needed, offering patience and understanding without any demands. The farm, once a place of punishment, has become her sanctuary. Haley's decision to stay wasn't born out of obligation. It was a choice, her choice. She's no longer a prisoner of her past or her mother's control. The final shot lingers on Haley, looking out over the fields with a content smile on her face. There's no grandeur in this moment, no extravagant riches. There is simply the quiet satisfaction of knowing she's found a life that feels true to her. Her eyes meet John's across the field, and they share a quiet, unspoken understanding. Together, they are building something lasting, something real. The peace that settles over them is not just in the land they tend but in the quiet connection they share, side by side, working in harmony. This is her new beginning, and for the first time, Haley knows she's exactly where she's meant to be. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more amazing tales. Your support keeps us going,